Good morning. I'm Aaron Tomlinson. Welcome back to Sunday Morning Live. It is the Sunday before Halloween 2024. And that's going to be the focus of my talk this morning. Going to give people a chance to jump on, get this shared in a couple places. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Running just a little bit late today, just a few minutes. Not bad. Just want to make sure it got posted to the New Day Global Group. So give me just a second for that. If you're watching by replay, I appreciate it. I don't know how long I'll go today. I have a bit of a axe to grind this morning. Okay. All right, so let's jump into this. Like I said, I have a bit of a axe to grind this morning. So I've been seeing this post. I don't know how many of you have seen this post on social media, but I've seen several people post and repost this that are Christians on my timeline, or posting or reposting this for Christians. So I'm just going to read it real quick. It generally goes something like this. I took a screenshot of this post on October 19th. It says, from my pastor, and then has a colon there. Ex-Satanist John Ramirez warns Christian parents of the dangers of celebrating Halloween. Quote, it's like having a one-night stand with the devil. There's a quote by Anton LaVey, founder of the Church of Satan, where he says in his own words, quote, I want to thank every Christian parent for allowing their children to celebrate the devil one night out of the year, which is Halloween. He's intentionally thanking, end quote. No, that's not the end of the quote. Sorry. He is intentionally thanking Christian parents. Thank you for dressing up your kids, changing their identity, sacrificing their spirituality. End quote. He likened the practice to having a, quote, one-night stand, a one-night stand, saying, quote, we go celebrate Halloween. When we go celebrate Halloween, we are in bed with the devil for one night. To me, it's like, why would you want to cheat on Jesus? Jesus doesn't cheat on you. I don't see, let's see. I lost my place. Let me start over. He likened the practice to having a, quote, one-night stand, saying, we go celebrate Halloween. We're in bed with the devil for one night. To me, it's like, why would you cheat on Jesus? Jesus doesn't cheat on you. I don't see the Satanists coming to your church to cheat on the devil. No way. And then that's the end of the quote. And then it says, John Ramirez was once one of the highest ranking warlocks in the world until Jesus saved his life. So, typical messaging, mostly from hardcore fundamentalist Christians, about Halloween again, scaring you, threatening you, shaming you if you're a Christian for celebrating Halloween, honoring Halloween, or letting your children celebrate Halloween. He equates it to cheating on Jesus with the devil for one night, and then goes on to quote Anton LaVey. Now, I don't know if this is an accurate quote from ex-Satanist John Ramirez, but I did a little bit of digging, did a little bit of looking into this guy. And look, it's not my purpose, nor does it fit really within my values to challenge or take apart individual person that I don't agree with, or especially when I don't know them, they don't have any possibility to refute anything that I'm saying about them because they're not here. And yeah, I just don't like doing that. But this has been getting a lot of airplay on my timeline. And it's interesting because my wife saw it first and she read it to me and she couldn't quit laughing. Like, she found it hysterical. Because there's lots wrong with this statement. We'll kind of go through this statement, but the whole purpose, the purpose of this episode isn't to, dunk on a preacher, especially a preacher that I don't even know, but just to talk about Christians and Halloween, maybe a little bit about the origins of Halloween, and is it, what's up with this? I mean, to me, I don't know about you guys, but for me, Halloween is very, very different for my children and different today in some ways, in some significant ways, than it was when I was growing up. And a lot of that is because the church in the last 30 years or so, maybe even before that, has really been focused on getting Christian parents and Christian children not to celebrate Halloween, or doing alternative celebrations like harvest festivals or harvest evenings or trunk or treat, where children can come. I remember we went to one Halloween, we just visited trunk or treats, and all of these trunk or treats were basically churches that were providing these alternative celebrations. Nothing wrong with that. They were handing out candy to the kids. They had games. They had some really fun and cool stuff for the kids. But I remember one particular night, there was a haunted house that was at this particular church. Now, for a while there in the 2000s, it was really a fad for churches to have hell houses around Halloween, where they would depict in their haunted house or their hell house the horrors of hell, and try to literally scare the hell out of people, and provide some kind of salvation message at the end. If you want to avoid this, if you don't want this to be your destiny, eternal destiny in the afterlife, then, receive Jesus as your savior, that kind of stuff. But this particular church did a heaven house. And so you go up and it's just, it was in their upstairs. They had an upstairs and they decorated it like they would perceive heaven to be, with, of course, people dressed in white outfits as angels. I think they were even playing harps. Very typical imagery that we relate to in our subconscious in the West about angels and the afterlife and heaven and things like this. But it didn't have any of the, sort of scarier elements that we expect in Halloween. And I just remember coming out of that experience, and this was a number of years ago, coming out of that experience and saying, to a certain degree, for me, Halloween was ruined by these things, but certainly it's been changed and influenced by the church. So good for them. My dogs are barking like crazy. I don't know that I can actually do anything about that. Let me see. Hold on real quick. We'll see. Hopefully that's not too distracting. Oh, there's my son yelling at him. I don't know if you can hear him. All right. So, but let's come back to John Ramirez, ex-Satanist John Ramirez, because I watched an interview that he did, a podcast, just to get familiar with him, find out what he was. There's a lot of people that go around or have gone around claiming authority to know about the occult, to know about the devil, to know about the spiritual realm on the evil side and the dark side. And they usually claim to be some kind of ex-Satanist or some kind of satanic high priest. I saw another video from someone else, not John Ramirez, but another video recently that someone was playing of someone who was a satanic high priest. And they all make really sort of bizarre and sort of outlandish and sort of extreme claims about themselves. Now, I'm not here, again, to question anybody's testimony or story. But for example, this other unnamed preacher that I saw, someone had posted a video clip. They also claim to be a high priest in Satanism. And they made the claim that in order to become a high priest in Satanism, that you had to first be a Freemason. You had to be like a 33rd degree Freemason in order to be a become a high priest Satanist. And then he also said you also have to become a Catholic priest, that you can't become a high priest in Satanism if you become a Catholic priest. Now, both of these guys are claiming to be Satanists, and both of them claiming authority. And because most of us probably haven't practiced Satanism, and I would venture to say there probably isn't anyone on here that legitimately was some kind of a high priest or priestess to Satan or to the devil in some kind of organized group, then it's not something that we have a lot of knowledge about. We think it's out there. We hear stories that it's out there, and it's macabre, it's taboo. And anything that's macabre or taboo usually is going to pique people's interest. And so we have a tendency to just kind of get starry-eyed, I guess, or just glaze over, say, well, I don't know anything about this, but this person, they were a high priest of Satan. And so they're claiming a certain level of authority in order to claim credibility, in order to establish their credibility about what they're saying. This is just a common thing that we do. Now, the interesting thing about these people who claim to be, high up in Satanism or high up in some kind of satanic organization, usually they go on to talk about how nefarious and evil and criminal these groups are. And so their stories can never really be verified, and they can never really be fact checked. And so when you're studying how to think critically, when you're being taught how to think critically, one of the things that they'll spend a lot of time on, I took a class on this in college, one of the things they spent a lot of time on was logical fallacies. You may or may not have heard of logical fallacies, but it's identifying common tropes that people use to convince us or persuade us of something that isn't necessarily going to square with critical thinking. It's actually designed to bypass critical thinking in order to get ideas past the gates, if you will, in order to convince you or persuade you of something through associations and various different techniques. So in that way, it is a low-level form of hypnosis, because hypnosis, when it's used correctly, in order to benefit someone, hypnosis is used to bypass critical thinking or negative thinking that goes on in the conscious mind, to kind of get that out of the way so that positive ideas for change, suggestions, and ideas for change in your perceptions, behaviors, in your beliefs, which we've been talking about on here a little bit, your beliefs, is to bypass all that critical thinking and hopefully put something in there that will support you, benefit you, and help your life. Hopefully done with, well, if it's done ethically, it's done with your permission and your consent and your informed consent. So in other words, if you go see a professional hypnotherapist, there needs to be some kind of informed consent. I'm going to put you in some kind of a trance. I'm going to take you through some kind of hypnotic induction. This is the script that I'm going to put in there, and you have some kind of agreement. Here's the risks, here's the benefits, here's how it may work, here's how it may not work. It might work for you, it doesn't work for everybody, that kind of thing. But very often people end up using techniques consciously or unconsciously. In other words, knowingly or not knowingly, awake to what they're doing or asleep to what they're doing. They'll use techniques that are designed to bypass critical thinking in order to get us to believe ideas. And one of the logical fallacies is an appeal to authority. Appeal to authority. This must be true and this must be right because this comes from some kind of an authority. So that's at the very beginning of this statement that I just read. Ex-Satanist John Ramirez says it's an appeal to authority right out of the gate. And because it is an authority, and it goes on and says he was one of the top warlocks in the world. I'm going to get back to that. Okay, so ex-Satanist, satanic high priest, one of the top warlocks in the world. See how that's establishing a level of authority that cannot be verified with any kind of credibility, cannot be fact-checked with any kind of credibility. There's no organization. I mean, even in Christianity, I know with this was true in my case, and it's true in the case of denominational churches or any kind of organized religion. Generally, you have to be ordained, you have to be licensed as a minister, and there is some group of people that gives you that ordination, that gives you that license, that you are held to some kind of standards that you are held accountable to. And so you're able to check that stuff. When it comes to this Satanist stuff, you're not able to fact check it. But we can go and listen. You can go online if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it. But if you want to, if you're a glutton for punishment like me, I did it so you don't have to. You can go and check out John Ramirez and his testimonies. He's done a number of interviews, number of podcasts, has a number of videos out there. But in this particular one that I was watching, he claims that he was a general for the devil. He was one of the devil's generals. And he makes this bizarre claim at the very beginning. He says, nothing could happen in the spiritual realm from the dark side without my notice or my permission. I want you to think about that. Even if you're a hardcore believer, even if you are a hardcore fundamentalist who believes in the powers of darkness, you believe in the devil, you believe in demons and stuff like that, does it make sense that one person has the capacity, or even a small group of people has the capacity, that somehow they have to give demons and devils and anybody that's meddling with spells or meddling with witchcraft or messing with tarot cards or gazing into crystal balls, whatever it is that you think as a Christian is going to be evil or some form of divination, some form of spiritual practice, that nothing can happen without this person's approval? To me, that's just, again, an outrageous claim for him to make. And maybe he misspoke. Maybe he didn't mean to say that, but it was said in that interview. I went back and listened to that part a couple times to make sure I caught it right. So there's an appeal to authority right off the bat, an appeal to authority that cannot be verified. Now, if you go and watch this guy's YouTube videos and his testimonies, he claims he holds no claim to Satanism at all as a organized religion, or even to a satanic group that one would think of as typical, because what he claims to have been raised in and practiced and been a quote unquote high priest in or general in or whatever is the religion of Santeria. Now, Santeria is a combination of a lot of different things, but essentially it's a combination of Catholicism and some kind of folk religion and sort of folk religion practices. This becomes blended together and is practiced by people typically that live in Central America. And the word Santeria actually means the worship of the saints. So there is a lot of Catholicism. There is a lot about Mary. There is a lot about the saints. It's kind of the focus of Santeria. It in no way identifies itself as a satanic religion or a satanic organization. Now, the post here goes down and quotes Anton LaVey, who we know is the founder of the Church of Satan. Now, if anybody knows anything about LaVeyan Satanism, LaVeyan Satanism is generally considered, I think there could be some debate here, but I'm not going to get in the weeds with it. It's generally considered by most practitioners and most people to be an atheistic religion that uses ritual, that uses ceremony, that uses theatrics as a way of self-development and focusing the will. But there is no real belief in the devil. Certainly, it tends to be very materialistic, so there's no belief in the spiritual realm and all that kind of stuff. So when this guy says he was an ex-Satanist, or they say about him he was an ex-Satanist, he says that about himself, or says that he was a high priest. Let's be clear. It was in Santeria, which is a totally different religion, which has nothing to do with Satanism at all. So that's the first thing there. But then the other thing he goes on and says, and again, this is just kind of a cheap ploy and cheap play on words that are taboo, that are mysterious, that kind of scare and spook people. But it says, let's see, one of the top ranking warlocks in the world, one of the highest ranking warlocks in the world. Now, I didn't know there was a warlock competition out there. Now, if we define a warlock as a male who practices some form of witchcraft, whether it's Wicca, whether they have their own practice, whether they're part of a coven, whether they are part of some criminal group out there that's doing something nefarious that may or may not exist, how do you rank that? How do you rank that? All the people that might be practicing or claiming to be warlocks. I mean, just go look, just look up Wicca in Amazon, because that's where someone might be called a warlock, or look up witchcraft, or look up magic, usually with a K spell at the end to separate it from like stage magic. Just look it up on Amazon and see how many authors are out there. See how many people are writing books. Like if you write a book, you are claiming some level at least of knowledge and expertise. And so what is this like? Is there some Warlock Olympics out there that I'm not aware of where they have a world ranking? I mean, one of the things that I've done in my life is I've done coaching with world-class athletes. A particular person in their particular sport that was ranked, I think, 5th in the world. So they had a ranking based on competitions and stuff. Like, is there some kind of warlock competition out there that I'm missing? Like, how can somebody be the highest ranking warlock? So the first thing that's embedded, and even if you don't care about this, even if you say, Aaron, why are you talking about this? We don't even believe in a devil. We're going to let our kids practice Halloween. Like, why are you even putting this out here? Because I want to show you how Christian propaganda works, because that's exactly what this is. And that's why I said I have a bit of an axe to grind, because layered in this from the beginning and the end, at the very beginning, ex-Satanist, and then it goes on and it quotes Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan. See how there's all this appeal to authority? And then at the very end, it says, one of the top ranking warlocks in the world. Listen, I don't even have to know him. I don't have to interview him. Let's just apply some basic standard common sense. Can we do that? Can we just use a little bit of common sense? How does someone rank as a top warlock? How's that even a thing? How's that even happen? So we've got some stuff in here already that if you do just 10 minutes of Googling or watching on YouTube or something, that makes this sketchy to begin with, because someone claiming to be a Satanist who actually was born into a family that reportedly practiced Santeria, two totally different things. And I'll come to why they're able to make the jump from Santeria to Satanism in a minute. It's probably obvious to those of you that grew up in this kind of stuff. Then we're going to quote Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan. And again, I didn't fact check that. Did he actually say that? Did he not actually say that? I have no idea. But I want you to see the appeal to authority there. And I want you to see the scare factor, the scare element. Oh, well, my gosh, they must know. They must know stuff. And so you've got all these Christian people, Christian preachers that have made a name for themselves, that have sold books, that have gotten platforms and popularity and authority and credibility. See, that's the issue. Authority and credibility, leveraging authority and credibility based on a claim, whether it is true or not, that they were a high priest or high priestess or some high-ranking person in the ranks of Satanism. And in this case, one of the highest ranking warlocks, which again, I don't know how in the hell you figure that out. So that just is blatantly false on its face. Some things are just blatantly false on their face. Now, he can say he's a high priest in Satanism, if he was a high priest in Santeria, if Santeria even has high priest. I don't even know. Maybe there's somebody out there, you have more experience or knowledge about Santeria. You can weigh in on this in the comments. But Christians have a very bifurcated, non-complicated, simplistic view of the spiritual world. And let's face it, our brains like non-complicated and simple. Don't confuse me with a lot of facts. Don't confuse me with a lot of nuance. Just give me something simple. Just give me something basic that I can apply. And there's nothing more basic than good and evil. There's the good side, which is the only way onto the good side is through some kind of faith in Jesus. Jesus is God manifest in the flesh. Jesus himself is the way, the truth, and the life. Anything outside of that is run by the devil, and the devil will try to deceive you. I'm not saying that I believe this. I'm saying this is how simplistic and bifurcated it becomes. It's all the same entity. So the devil has his kingdom, and he's out there masquerading as saints. He's out, his demons are out there masquerading as saints. They're masquerading as aliens from other planets. They're masquerading as gods and goddesses, or they're just outright showing you who they are and showing up and say, hi, I'm the devil, or hi, my name is Satan, or whatever the case may be. But it's all the same. So anybody that doesn't believe like us, think like us, worship like us, behave like us, if they're doing anything in the spiritual realm, they're doing anything that we don't say, that we don't, with our authority, authorize and say is okay for you to do, then it must be from the devil, and you must be worshiping the devil. So if you're Hindu, you're worshiping the devil. If you're Buddhist, you're worshiping the devil. If you're an occultist, you're worshiping the devil. If you're Santeria, you're worshiping the devil. And obviously, if you're a Satanist, you're worshiping the devil. So we just take that very simplistic view and allow somebody to say, I was a high priest for Satan, when they say out of their own mouth that they practiced a religion that had nothing to do with Satan, but is actually about the worship of Catholic saints, or not even the worship necessarily. I'm sorry I use that term, but more like devotion and petition and whatever to Catholic saints. And so now has all this authority and tells us that we shouldn't be out there letting our children practice Halloween. Again, this may not be interesting to you. You may think, why are you doing this? I'm trying to show you principles of how you can see something and say, is this true? Is this not true? Or is this a bunch of BS? And this is just a classic example of something that's total BS, that's designed to scare people and intimidate people and shame people if they choose, if they're Christians and they love Jesus and they allow their children to celebrate Halloween. But it's also how religious systems work at a hypnotic level, quite frankly, at a low level of witchcraft, not witchcraft, a low level of black magic, let's say it that way. A low level of nefarious magic to trick people, to put people in trances and put people in under spells with words in order to control their thinking or to control their behavior. The intent of this post, and everybody that copied it, everybody that pasted it, everybody that shared it, whether they did it this knowingly or unknowingly, the intention of it is to control the thinking and the behavior of other Christians, of other believers, of other people. And to do it in a way that's not very transparent on its face or very honest. And that is manipulative. That is mind control. That is behavior control. That is not coming. And I can say this that is not coming from a place of love. That is not coming from a place, we say that God honors free will. That is not coming from a place that honors free will. It's stupid, it's funny, it's asinine, it's BS, but it's also unethical. It's mind control. All right, I told you I had a bit of an axe to grind. Aaron, why are you getting worked up about this? Because I don't like that for people, especially for children, right? Because it's messing with children, their fun, their holidays, their sense of culture, whatever the case may be. All right. Digging deeper into this, he says that if you, it's like having, he likened the practice, in other words, celebrating Halloween, allowing your kids to celebrate Halloween, to having a one-night stand. What are you even talking about? We go celebrate Halloween. We're in bed with the devil for one night. Really? So, Lord. Okay, another trick to hypnotize you, another trick to deceive you. Really, that's what's going on here. Deception. It's all projection. It's all projection. Celebrating Halloween is like having a one-night stand. It's like picking somebody up, at the bar? Tinder? I don't know. And going and having sex with them for one night while you're married, because he relates then to having an affair. All right. I don't even know where to begin with this, but I guess where I'll begin with this is built on a foundational belief that Halloween is somehow overtly dedicated to the devil, dedicated to Satan, dedicated to the powers of darkness. It's almost like Halloween is the devil's birthday or something. And you'll find this all over the internet, man. The internet is full of people. I was an ex-witch. I was an ex-warlock. I was an ex-Satanist. I was a high priest, and I was whatever. And Halloween was always our best night. Halloween was what we lived for. I think John Ramirez even says, I got married on Halloween. Well, I'm going to come back to that. It's all built on this presupposition that somehow Halloween is the devil's day. So you're going out consciously, letting your children consciously go out and celebrate the devil's day. Is it the devil's day? Is there any evidence of that? Is there any history for that? Now, again, if you're just simplistic because you like things simple and you think the spiritual world and life should just be simple and easily divided, then, this probably isn't for you. You probably aren't even watching this. But what's the evidence that this is Satan's day, that this is the devil's day? The truth of the matter is, you can go and watch historical documentaries. The History Channel's done stuff. Christians certainly have done stuff. But if you really dig into the history of Halloween, it's like so many other things in history that we just don't really have good documentation for it. It's not like somebody sat down sometime in the 16th century or even the 18th or 19th century and said, this is how Halloween came to be. We took this, like there is no organized satanic group that's saying this is how we announced to everybody that October 31st was the devil's day. It just doesn't exist. The truth of the matter is this. Now, a lot of people will connect it to Samhain, to the Celtic or Druidic celebration of Samhain, which was a celebration that took place mostly, from my understanding, in the Celtic lands. So the UK, let's just say the UK, but also probably other parts of Europe. But this isn't a time of year that was just commemorated or celebrated by Europeans. This was a time of year that was celebrated during the agricultural age by every people group on the planet, completely ubiquitous. This time of year being celebrated or recognized or honored or treated in a certain way as special. This goes on around the world, even in the Bible. Yeah, shocker. If you look at the feast day of the Feast of Tabernacles or Booths or Sukkoth, it's still highly honored and celebrated within Judaism today. We just celebrated Rosh Hashanah. It's around the same time. It's in October. So they had a time of celebration, and they actually had a blood sacrifice. Did you know that? They actually sacrificed animals. They actually, during the Day of Atonement, during Yom Kippur, which always takes place this time of year, they would, sacrifice a goat for the sins of the people to appease their God. And they would take this blood into the Holy of Holies, and they would put this blood on their Ark of the Covenant, where they believed that their God resided inside their tabernacle or inside of their temple. And then they would take another goat, and they would take this one, a live goat. They would confess the sins of the people on the goat. Now, remember, the goat is the devil's animal, right? Because anytime we see the devil depicted, he's depicted like a goat. I don't know how the goat, I do know some of the history perhaps of it, but why did we identify the devil with the goat? Goats, they're generally gentle creatures for the most part. Yeah. Any animal can be whatever, but you get what I'm saying. Like, all right. I'm digressing. I told you I had an axe to grind. Let me come back. Okay. My point is, all ancient cultures celebrated this time of year because for astrological reasons, for natural reasons, and because we lived in the agricultural age and we just finished the harvest in this part of the world. We just finished bringing in the harvest. So there were lots of celebrations where they celebrated the fact that they had a good harvest, or maybe they lamented and bemoaned the fact that they didn't have a good harvest, or whatever the case may be. But it's also that time of year where people are buckling down for winter, right? Where the days are getting shorter. In fact, this particular time, end of October, early November, is chosen because it's just about halfway between the fall equinox, when there's equal amounts of day, sunshine and darkness, daylight and darkness, and the winter solstice, which we're going to come to in a minute. Because if you can't celebrate Halloween and it's the devil's holiday, I can make a case that Christmas is the devil's holiday using the same damn logic. All right. Okay, you can tell I've got an axe to grind with this. I hope this is okay. A little bit different from what I do, but hey, variety's good, right? And this is for entertainment purposes only. So if anybody out there wants to sue me for slander or something. Anyway, that's my disclaimer. All right, so celebrating the harvest that's coming in, marking it as a liminal time, as a time when everything is changing. Spring generally, as a general rule, in agricultural cultures and ancient cultures, celebrated a time of renewal and a time of life and a time of fertility. That's why we have Easter and Passover and all that stuff that's in the Bible around this time of year. I mean, you think it's just a coincidence that we celebrate resurrection, new life, and rebirth and regeneration and all that stuff around the spring equinox, in between, in some cases, the spring equinox and the summer solstice? Like it's a celebration of light triumphing, of life triumphing, because things are coming alive again. Is it just a coincidence that that's when we celebrate Easter? That that's when we celebrate the resurrection? Did it dawn on anybody that the Christian church celebrates regeneration and resurrection, and I suppose even to a certain degree fertility, the same time as every other damn agricultural culture in the world celebrates it, including the Druids, including the Celts? I mean, they had their own, like, where do you think May Day came from? Just saying. All right. So, of course, this is a time of year that marks death, because shit's going to die. Like, leaves are drying up and falling off the trees. And hopefully, if you live in any kind of place where there's a change of seasons, like a lot of wildlife, like things go into hibernation this time, you know, lizards and snakes and stuff like that, and bears and bugs kind of die off. Like, hopefully you're not fighting mosquitoes as much as you were fighting it. So in a lot of these cultures, particularly in a colder climate environment like the UK, you're getting ready for a dark, cold time when everything's dead. So doesn't it just make sense then that just in the same way that spring celebrations recognize resurrection because things are coming back to life, that it might make sense that this time of year would be something that would mark some kind of something on the calendar about the dead. And so therefore, it's my understanding that the Celts, the Druids, and other cultures as well did believe that this was a time of year where there was what they call in Celtic tradition the thin places, the boundary between life and death is close. We're not in either season. We're in transition. It's liminal. And so therefore the veil between worlds is thinner. This is also considered to the same thing around springtime, planting time. This is just harvest time and getting ready for winter. One might be more of a celebration of life and resurrection and regeneration and fertility, birth, fertility, things being born. This obviously would be a time when we recognize death. I mean, my God, what's wrong with being human? Like, can we just accept the fact that humanity, before the Industrial Revolution, at least before urban areas and stuff like this, was more in touch with nature and the cycles of nature, and that maybe there was just a recognition that death is a part of life, just like birth is a part of life. And so in the spring, we're going to celebrate birth, and in the fall, we're going to celebrate death. We're going to acknowledge death. We're going to honor death, which brings me back to Halloween. What does the word Halloween mean? Halloween. Hallow. Halloween. Hallow. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Anybody that might have had a King James Bible. You know, King James that was famous for his Bible, but also the witch persecutions in England. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. The heck does the word hallowed mean? Well, it actually means holy. It actually means sacred. It actually means sanctified, righteous. Take your pick. And een is just a way, in a certain dialect, evening or eve, the eve of, was spoken. You know, we have Christmas Eve, we have New Year's Eve. This is Holy Eve, Hallow Eve. That's the frickin' name. So you tell me that the devil has no power. Tell me that he goes about like a roaring lion, but he's a toothless lion because Jesus defanged him on the cross. You tell me that Jesus defeated the devil. You tell me that he has no power over me as a believer, that greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. That he that is born of God sinneth not, and the evil one does not touch him. I pray in the same prayer as hallowed be thy name, deliver me from evil, lead me not into temptation. Devil's been told he has no power against Christians, but somehow he's afraid of words, he's afraid of Bibles, he's afraid of blessed water, he's afraid of crosses and crucifixes. He's certainly afraid of Jesus, whether you say Yeshua or Jesus or Jesus or whatever language you use it in. That name invokes fear and trembling. And somehow, hallow, holy, sanctified, biblical term, very Christian term, comes straight out of the Lord's Prayer, or Our Father if you're Catholic. I think that's what they call it. Somehow, that's the dedication to that's his night. That's his night. All right, so back to the cycles. So why is it Halloween? It's the eve of All Hallows Day. What does hallow mean in this sense? Saints. What religion did John Ramirez practice again? Oh, that's right, Santeria, dedicated to the saints. So maybe in that religion, All Saints Day might be important. The eve of All Saints Day might be a time you get married. Just saying. Has nothing to do with the devil or anything evil or nefarious. Maybe it's just that because Santeria is the worship of saints and it's syncretized with Catholicism and the honor of saints, maybe, just maybe, All Saints Day might be important in that religion. So the Catholic Church said, let's honor the saints. You know, those that are dead that have passed on. Let's honor them. Around this same time of year that agriculturally every culture on the dang planet has celebrated in some way, marked it out to acknowledge the dead. Not a stretch. Like, this didn't come from some mysterious place. It literally, quite literally, is a Christian holiday, at least from the Catholic perspective. And if you don't think Catholics are Christians, then, you know, there were no Christians for about 1,400 years. Really. Yeah. Yeah, it's just been in the last 600 years or so since the Protestant Reformation that people could actually be saved and be Christians. This is what you have to believe. This is what you have to presuppose in order to believe this. And really, it's only since we came up with this formula of the sinner's prayer, which is a byproduct of revival movements in America, made popular by a guy named Billy Sunday. Sometime, I don't remember when Billy Sunday was around, but let's say late 18th, early 19th century, or maybe even late 19th century. You can look it up. Because that's when evangelicalism and this formula on receiving Jesus and all that stuff became a thing. So really, to be a real Christian, if you discount Catholicism, the only way you could be a real Christian is in the last couple hundred years doing your thing. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's a firm foundation to rest on there. All right. I told you I had an axe to grind. All right. So you have All Saints Day, November 1st. That acknowledges the saints, right? The ones that are holy, hallowed, the holy ones. What about everybody else? Well, that would be All Souls Day, November 2nd. And that's when we pray for our loved ones that are in purgatory and all that kind of stuff. There are no direct links. I'm not saying that the Halloween tradition, some of our traditions in Halloween, does not go back to pagan celebrations, even though pagan's not the right word, or Samhain specifically. But there's no direct links at all. None. In fact, it's my understanding from historians that are credible that we don't really have any written records. The Druids didn't keep written records. Even people who practice Druid, what they called Druid traditions and Celtic spirituality, is a very loosely put together system based on the remnants of Celtic myth. Like they didn't have a written history about their people. They certainly didn't have any kind of written history about their celebrations. So it's all speculation. It's all speculation of whatever. We don't even know how they celebrated Samhain. But it is true that it was mostly Irish and Scottish immigrants that brought a lot of the traditions that we typically know of in Halloween, like trick or treat. Trick or treat doesn't go back to anything nefarious except a bunch of kids in the 1900s, 1910, 1920, in the first few decades of the last century, who on the night before All Saints Day were going out and doing tricks on their neighbors, on their property. You know, like, I don't know. Did you ever, when you were in high school, like if it was right before homecoming, football season, this time of year, usually right before the big game, did you ever go and TP, get toilet paper and put it in somebody's trees, or TP somebody's house, play some kind of prank? Yeah, that was going on. And then it evolved, and you can watch this on YouTube. You can do your own research on it. It evolved into, I will give you a treat instead of a trick. Jack-o'-lanterns evolved from a story of some trickster named Jack, who was so bad even the devil didn't want anything to do with him. He couldn't get into heaven and he couldn't get into hell. So the devil took a coal or something from hell and threw it in a lantern that he used to light his way as he wandered the earth. And therefore you came up with the jack-o'-lantern. And somewhere along the way, somebody started celebrating that story, telling that story this time of year and celebrating that story by putting candles inside of turnips to begin with, and ultimately pumpkins. My point is, every culture that was in touch with life, that was in touch with the seasons, particularly farming cultures, everything that precedes the Industrial Revolution, celebrated regeneration, resurrection, and new life when the crops were coming back to life in the spring, around the time of the equinox. And they told stories about the dead and acknowledged that very human experience. Birth in the spring, death in the fall, while we're getting ready for winter, including the Catholic Church. So yeah, maybe we would tell ghost stories around this time of year. It has to do with what makes us most human. What unites all of us throughout time, birth and death. Fear of death? Sure. So are we going to tell scary stories? Of course we are. People going to dress up like ghosts? Of course. Is it going to be a liminal time, seen and perceived as a liminal time? When the dead might come back? Go watch, what was that, Encanto, or what was the movie where it talked about the Mexican celebration of the Day of the Dead? All Souls Day, All Saints Day on the 1st. They're the holy ones. All Souls Day, we're going to pray for our people that are in purgatory, souls of our loved ones, that if they're in purgatory, they're able to move on. Maybe cultures might tell ghost stories. Maybe they might talk about things that have to do with darkness and death and fear, not because it's connected to anything to do with your idea of Satan, because Satanism as an organized religion has only been around for less than 100 years. 1967 or 68 or something like that, when Anton LaVey founded the Church of Satan. Like, maybe it's just that. Like, maybe it's not the devil's day. Maybe you're not having an affair on Jesus. I mean, give me a freaking break. So you're equating my kid dressing up as Batman to go and get some Reese's Pieces from his neighbor on one night a year, the same as having a one-night stand on someone that you're married to? Like, come on, man. Like, that's some devotion to Satan. That's giving the devil an orgasm. Oh, he just gets so orgasmic because kids are dressed up as Batman and Superman and Spider-Man, and maybe even witches, and maybe even one dresses up like the devil. Oh, that's an especially long orgasm there. That one really goes good. Of course they bring sex into it. Of course they do. All right. Obviously, I'm disgusted. That's it. That's all I got. It is not the devil's day. It's not devoted to the devil. It's not their favorite time of year. And if it is, it's something that's been adopted and co-opted from Halloween. And let me finish with this. If you're going to get rid of Halloween, if you're going to be consistent, not be a hypocrite, be consistent, not even do a lot of deep dive thinking here. But what the hell do dyed eggs and bunnies have to do with the resurrection of Jesus? So if you're going to get rid of trick-or-treating and you're going to get rid of Lenten because that's the devil's day, well, what the hell do you think bunnies and eggs are about on Easter Day? You think it's about the resurrection of Jesus, or is it about you? You're upset. This group of people seems to be obsessed with sex. What's it about? It's about birth. It's about birth. That day it's about birth. It's about sexuality, fertility, because that's how people are born, like it or not, I mean, my God, the reason fundamentalists were so against sex to begin with was they're afraid it might lead to dancing. Stupid, corny joke. Sorry. It's about, don't you think bunnies and eggs are about the fertility of spring? Don't you think that might have some pagan roots? Easter, the name, who knows where it comes from? Again, we don't know these things. Nobody wrote a history of it. People have speculated. It could be because the sun rises in the east, and so we're looking east, and so it's Easter in English. Or it could have come from pagan celebrations to Astarte or Ishtar, Easter, Ishtar. Who knows? I'm not saying it does, but I'm saying it could. So let's get rid of that. What do you think a Christmas tree, an evergreen? Think about this. You think December 25th has anything to do with the birth of Jesus? Like some scribe recorded it and it's being held in some secret holy place in the Vatican underneath St. Thomas's bones. In St. Peter's Basilica, right next to, the hidden remains of St. Peter, there is this document that tells us Jesus was born on December 25th? Or do you think that the church might have picked a day that people related to, that they might be able to convert some meaning to them? Because for, again, agricultural people, the sun dies on December 21st because that's the day that darkness reigns. That's the longest day of the year for everybody, right? In the Northern Hemisphere, at least. And definitely everybody in Europe. So when we're talking about Roman Catholicism or we're talking about Christianity, came to us from Europe, maybe we picked the 25th because it's roughly 3 days after the sun dies and the days begin to get longer and the nights begin to get shorter. And so maybe there would be symbolism of a star in the sky, and maybe there would be stories in Luke about a great light that has risen upon us. What do you suppose is the great light that is risen upon us? Huh? There's as much link between the 25th being called Christmas by the Catholic Church as there is Halloween. There's as much link to paganism in the fact that we celebrate Jesus' birthday on December 25th. It's tied to astrology, astrotheology, or maybe just the natural rhythms of the earth and nature for people in Europe. So it just makes sense. But if you apply the same logic, then guess what? You're cheating on Jesus when you honor his birthday on the 25th. I think that might even be more upsetting to Jesus. You're honoring my birthday on a pagan holiday. What's been a pagan holiday typically? And why do you think you have an evergreen tree? Why don't you think you have a palm tree for a Christmas tree? All right. So if you're going to be consistent and you're going to say Halloween is evil and Halloween is the devil's day when it's a Christian holiday or a Catholic holiday, then let's be consistent and apply the same thing to Christmas. Get rid of your freaking Christmas tree and quit giving presents and putting them under the tree. And definitely don't play Santa Claus with your kids. And while we're at it, we might as well throw out all the Easter celebrations as well. The early church, as far as I could tell in the book of Acts, they didn't celebrate Easter. Paul doesn't say anything about Easter celebrations in his writings. It's not biblical. My God, the rest of the world is talking about bunnies and coloring eggs and hiding eggs for kids to find them. These are fun things for kids. So I want to see the same. So if you posted this thing, this BS thing about Halloween, I expect from you the same fidelity, the same fealty, the same loyalty to Jesus on December 25th, around that time of year. I expect the same fidelity around Easter and that time of year. Because you're using the same damn logic. All right. Rant over. Mariana. I just saw this comment come through. Mariana says, I'm putting up my Halloween party decorations as I listen to this. Greetings, Aaron. Face blue smiling, hand pink waving. Joyce says, my husband is the son of a Methodist pastor. He asked his dad when he was small about the eggs and the bunny and what they had to do with Jesus. His dad did not give him an answer. Of course not. I mean, and they even say in this post, if you missed it, you have to go back to the beginning. They say in this post, you don't see Satanists coming to your church on Easter. Well, why not? But there is as much link historically to the devil for Easter celebrations and Christmas celebrations as there are for Halloween celebrations. So get over yourself. Quit trying to control people with fear and shame and stupidity and lame ass arguments. Okay. I'm not going to read any more comments. I'm going to go. This is not good for my health. So I'm going to go chill out. I'm going to watch some football because it's also that time of year. I might have some apple cider later. And then sometime this evening, we're going to carve up our jack-o'-lanterns and get ready for Halloween. So thank you for watching this. We got all the way through it. If I upset you, sorry, not sorry. And if you celebrate Halloween, I hope you have a wonderful, scary, spooky, macabre Halloween.